Alrighty, welcome to another solo episode of All of It with Paige Miller. And today is the first solo episode I've done in a while, and it's going to be the first episode that is actually video recorded. So I've been in a bit of a funk with the podcast just because I've been having some technical difficulties. And so what I have learned about myself is when I hit a roadblock, that is not easily resolved for me, that's going to take too much time, I just avoid it because I have a million other things to do. And so the podcast has kind of taken a back seat in the last couple months. So I'm super excited because I was on a podcast of someone else's last week and I was able to connect with her and kind of figure out how she was doing some things. And she gave me the name of someone that's helping her produce it on the back end. And so now I have someone that is going to be helping me produce everything on the back end so I can do the part that I love, which is talking to you guys and having great conversations with interview guests and leave the rest to him. So I'm feeling super excited about that. And in terms of like feeling a little stuck or behind or in a funk with the podcast, I feel like I've had the most amazing start to the year. I mean, the momentum that I built basically in Q4 last year coming into Q1 has been incredible. And I've just been like riding this wave and everything's been amazing. Especially when it comes to business. Like I've set out to hit so many goals, I've achieved them. It's been amazing. I feel super grateful. I feel very aligned. Like all of that stuff is true. And I am finding that my mind and I think my body is telling me that I've maybe been running at like a little bit of a pace that's not really sustainable. And so I've had a bit of a funk recently that I'm kind of trying to work through. And I can't necessarily put like my finger on exactly what it is, but I was pretty down yesterday. So I was kind of reflecting on how I get unstuck when I'm feeling stuck or in some kind of a funk, and like what kind of tools have I learned over the last several years, and how do I proceed forward. And because these times are always going to happen, like no matter how amazing life is, no matter how many goals you achieve. I was listening to the Mel Robbins podcast yesterday, and I love Mel Robbins. And I was listening to one of her episodes about happiness, and especially in this country, how we define happiness or think that happiness is going to come from basically the wrong areas. So oftentimes we set goals and we say, once we achieve this, then we will be happy. And if you've done any kind of self-work or growth yourself, I think that you know that that is not, in fact, the case. And really where true happiness comes from is the small day-to-day details, routines, gratitude, just being present, and enjoying the ride. So while I was listening to that podcast, I was thinking about like, I've been kind of grumpy or feeling some kind of a way. So like, where is this coming from? So then I started going down this rabbit hole, and I actually texted my mastermind group yesterday and I was like, man, I'm in a funk. This is kind of what's going on. Like, what suggestions do you guys have? And even though I could have done that work solo, I was also reminded by Chris Harder, which if you follow me on Instagram, you heard me talk about this in my stories, but I get money mindset slash wealth text from Chris Harder Monday through Friday. And one of the things that he was talking about yesterday was about community and your network and who you know is actually going to help you get farther along so much faster. So I leaned on my community to kind of pull me out of my funk, give me some directions to go with things. So I super appreciated that. And then I was thinking about how do I naturally do this? Because I am a thinker. I spend a lot of time inside my head with my own thoughts, thinking about all the things. Um, And so I was looking at kind of like the framework that I come up with when I'm in kind of a funk or if I'm feeling stuck for whatever reason. So I wrote some things down to remind myself. And for me, it definitely comes down to like three different components. So there's like the physical actions that I need to take in order for me to then get to the place where I can be mentally unstuck and then in my soul, like feeling unstuck. So when it comes to the physical things, for me, I love to walk. I like to walk outside. I love the fresh air. I like to just be present. It helps me clear my mind and obviously just feel better in general. So walking, fresh air, and then cold plunging has been huge for me this year. Maybe part of my funk right now is that I haven't gone cold plunging, I don't think once in the month of April, and we're already at the very end of April. So I've maybe gone one time. So I should probably get back to cold plunging because that has been a tool that's been super helpful for me. I feel like it has alleviated so much of my general anxiety. Um, the salt water is super healing to me. I absolutely love it. And then I think just having to be like so mentally in the zone and present when you're cold plunging has been huge. And then of course, like the high you get after cold plunging is also incredible. So all of those things for me are super grounding. And since I do spend so much time in my head thinking about the what if that, the future, it's super helpful for me to come from a place of being much more grounded. And then that turns into what I also do mentally. So these are funny things that I actually never really thought about until I was sitting down and thinking about it actively. But things that I love to do are daydream. Like I love to daydream, not just like sit in a chair and look out the window and daydream. Like I am going to do a deep dive research on something that just makes me like excited. Like what would be really cool in my life? Like what trip would I want to go on? What would that look like? Who would I go with? How long would I need to be there? I'll do a deep dive on Zillow. I mean, who doesn't like real estate? I know that I do. So I'll do like a deep dive on homes in different areas or look at it from an investment standpoint. Like what it doesn't, I take away all of the like practicalities and I just go all in on daydreaming. Love it. Um, then I actually like to reflect and ask questions to myself. So once again, that kind of takes me back into my own head, but asking good questions gives good answers. And so it also provides so much clarity. So if I am coming from a place where I'm already physically grounded and I've done some stuff to like get me excited, such as daydreaming, then I'll reflect and I'll ask questions and I will journal. And I often find that that brings so much clarity to me in order to give me more perspective on where I'm really coming from instead of just feeling the feels, but not really connecting it with, I don't know, something more like direct. So journaling is super helpful for me. And sometimes it's just getting it out. I do like to verbal process, but sometimes there's things going on inside my head that I just need to like talk to myself about. I will often tell my friends, like if something's going on with me, I'll then be like, so I was talking to myself about this the other day, which is something that I do quite often. And so for me, this mental component of it is definitely something that I refer to as like quality alone time, but it's really doing a deep dive and checking in with myself on like what I'm feeling, why I'm potentially feeling that way, and what I can do to take action to move forward. And then the last thing is like, how do I feel? How do I nurture my soul? So I've been working with someone who I call my energy healer for several years now. She is magic. And it's basically an opportunity for me to do like a deeper dive on meditation. And it's interesting for me what comes up, and then it's interesting to hear the feedback from her, what she has to say on how all of my energy is feeling in my body and all the things. But meditation is super helpful. I mean, I think it's a very trendy thing that people have been talking about now for several years. But it really is a game changer. For me, meditation is much easier in I don't know whether I want to say easier. I just prefer it over breath work, but also I've done very little breath work at this point. But for me, I'm a meditation kind of gal. And then, of course, just like gratitude. And my favorite form of gratitude is just to be grateful for like the most simple, small things, because that is, in my opinion, what truly brings joy to your life, or just like being in awe of my daughter or something funny she's doing, or being grateful for my husband and things that he's working on for our home or our investments, or like just even being grateful that he gets to go do the stuff that he wants to do, because he is a man of many hobbies. So all of those things like just bring me a sense of like hope and peace. So when it comes to the physical, mental, and soul, that's all grounding, but it's good alone time. And then it just puts me in a better frame of mind, feeling really hopeful in moving forward. And then once I have all of those things somewhat under control, I find it easier to A, figure out what action I should be taking, and B, go ahead and execute on that action. Um, and I think that that's been something that has developed more and more for me over the last, I mean, I feel like I always reference the last 2 years, but what can I say? 2.5 years ago, my life was rocked, and becoming a mom and losing my dad at the same time was just a very pivotal life moment where it was devastating and joyful and hard and all the things all at the same time. And it just put everything in perspective for me, where I was like, man, I'm not going to hold back on life anymore. Like, I'm doing me. But that also took a lot of like reflecting, soul searching, figuring out what that even looked like. And when I was on a podcast the other day, I was kind of talking about how I feel like I've stepped into this time in my life where I truly trust myself. So like, even if if it feels right for me, I'm just going to trust that that is what I need and that's the direction I'm going to go. Also circling back to the last few days, since I feel like I have been running at such a fast pace, everyone keeps asking me like, how do you do it all? And I'm like, well, first of all, I don't, obviously, but I do a lot of things. And I have been intentional with making sure that I'm only doing the things that feel right, feel peaceful. I'm not forcing anything. And so I think when I've hit this wall the last, I don't know what is time, but we'll say the last couple weeks, um, I think I've been feeling uncomfortable with it because I haven't been saying yes to things that I don't want to. I've been very intentional about saying yes to only things that bring me some sense of fun, some sense of joy. I mean, obviously, there's things in life that I have to do that aren't necessarily great, but for the most part, I've really been mindful of that. And so I think I've been in a funk because I'm like, wait, but I'm doing everything that feels good in my soul. So like, why am I hitting this funk? And I think that's really been interesting. So I also was reminded by my mastermind girls yesterday that like, if you're in a funk and you're feeling this way, like especially when it comes to work, work can wait. Do only the things that you have to do, and give yourself like the time, the space, and the grace to do whatever you need to do to get back on track. Because right now, clearly something is out of um I don't know, something is not quite right. So give yourself the time, the space, the grace to figure that out and get back on track. And I will tell you, I did that. And I feel immensely better today. I wouldn't say I feel 100%, but I feel so much better. So I hope that this message resonated with you on some level. And I always love feedback and to hear what you guys do to help yourself, but hopefully that framework helped you. And I look forward to talking to you guys soon. And I have some really great interviews coming up. So stay tuned for some longer episodes.